All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Netman podcast, where we want to help anybody and everybody we can with anything to do with fishing. If you're finding any value in these guys, please give us a like or a comment on someone you'd want us to interview. Apple Podcast, YouTube, and Spotify is where we're laying these out for everybody. Who we got on tonight, Aaron?
We're going to have Destin Demarion, former Elite Series pro. Fished the Bassmaster Opens from 2011 to 23. Multiple top 10 finishes, multiple top 20s, 22 top 30s. He's just a hammer. He's also a guide up here on Lake Erie with a big fat bass. Right here out of Northwest Pennsylvania. So I'm excited to kind of pick his brain about his experiences on the Elites and really just how to get on some smallmouth up on the big Lake Erie.
Yeah, I want to keep that rolling right from Whitney's episode there a couple shows ago and get into some more tidbits on how to catch some of these big giant smallmouth up north. So
yeah, man, both of these guys are Lake Erie just sticks, man.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Catch them. I'm pumped for this.
Let's do it.
All right, everybody. We've got Destin Demarion on with us tonight. Former Elite Series pro, Open Pro, Toyota Pro, multiple top 10s, top 20s, top 30s. And so we're excited to have him on. And I'm making an assumption here. He's a bit of a smallmouth guru. Based on his just based on his tournament trail history and his guide service. So we're excited to just pick your brain, Destin, and kind of hear about your journey and what it was like on the Elite Series and just go from there. So why don't we
thanks for having me, Aaron and Jesse. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man.
Excited.
Let's start with your guide service.
Mm-hmm.
So you're out of northwestern Pennsylvania.
Yep. Yeah. So my wife and I live in Erie, so we're actually a little bit east suburb, Harbor Creek.
Okay.
Out in the country. I'm not a city guy, but I've run my guide service, Big Fat Bass guide service, up there for 10 years now. When I was traveling a ton, I kind of backed it off to just weekends and working and stuff. So I mean, I was doing it full time for the most part early on in my career, between there and going to Florida and guiding the St. Johns River for four winters and springs for my buddy Larry, who runs the lodge down there. And I did some work for Johnny Morris, guiding at his lodge down there, and CSX Railroad and Norfolk Southern Railroad in Palatka. So, I've done it for a long time, just revamping, getting more full time again with that. So, pretty well booked up in April here when I go home from Cayuga, pretty much till for the foreseeable future. So I'm looking forward to. It's been a later year this year, so it's going to be, the bite has pushed back probably a month from what it was last year because we didn't have ice on the lake, and there's still a big ice pack in Buffalo right now on the lake. So thankfully it's moved past us, but it's backed everything up a little bit for us. So the best bite's about probably this end of this week, and then next week it's probably going to be really fire. So yeah, primarily smallmouth. I've been doing some more perch stuff. I'm actually at a perch tournament at Cayuga Lake for my sponsor Doc's Tackle right now, up in New York in the Finger Lakes. So been doing a little guiding for that for perch as well. We have some awesome perch fishing, as you guys probably have heard, in Erie and Presque Isle, if you haven't already experienced it yourself. And
can't be a good perch nugget.
I think they're better tasting than walleye, honestly.
They are delicious. Absolutely.
Yes. They are probably the best freshwater eating fish, in my opinion. Crappies are really good too, and it seems like those smaller type fish are pretty dang tasty. But yeah, I mean that's basically what I've been doing with my guide business, and just looking forward to getting ramped up here and teaching some people some new techniques and catching some big pre-spawn smallies.
So your guide trips, is it just like a typical guide guided trip out there? Like you just go out and fish and have fun? Or do you have like topics that you teach on the water?
Yeah, so a little bit of both.
Okay.
Some of my clients, want more of that, like, maybe they're a little further along and they want to, dive a little deeper into techniques and stuff. One of my best clients, like his favorite thing is like, I'll have like 10 rods in the deck. I was like, what do you want to catch a fish on next? So like we kind of go through like how to fish this bait, how to fish that bait, how to catch, target fish at this times of year. Cause I've taken them spring, through fall. And, that's a fun thing for me. Like I enjoy the teaching. I enjoy like diving into techniques and like, figuring out each day because it's different. I mean, that's the fun part about fishing. It's why we all love it, right? Because it's every day is different. And, I do electronics trips. Like a lot of my people like to come up and bring their boat. Hey, I got a new boat. I was like, all right, bring it down. We'll drive out there and I'll show you how to dial in your graphs and interpret what you're seeing out there and, that kind of stuff. And we're going to do some more like specialized, forward facing type, teaching and how to, just distinguish between like a bass or walleye and stuff. Like I'm going to dabble in more in some walleye. I've been really honing that in the summertime, in the spring and the fall, as well as lake trout. I mean, pretty much doing it for perch too. So, I mean, it's definitely, you got a lot of options with the teaching and just opportunities to, learn.
I could use one of them. Those which we have soul guy in a lot of these inland lakes, but they're the trickiest fish to distinguish from a bass for me.
Yep.
For whatever reason, sometimes the only way you can distinguish them, I think, is there's sometimes 4 or 5 of them swimming around together. But
yeah, that's the other thing. Sometimes is just like how they school together helps you distinguish between like the types of fish that you're looking at. Like we were talking about it earlier, like with perch, a lot of times you see them on the bottom and they like kind of scurry, they're like mice on the bottom.
yeah,
Bass don't really move like that. So you kind of know like that's perch or that's, something like small like that.
yeah, makes sense. Where did it all start for you, Destin, as a kid? Someone get you into fishing, or were you just raised into a fishing outdoor family, kind of like me, or
Yeah. Oh,
what happened
well,
there?
that's awesome that you were. That's
Oh
awesome.
yeah, oh
That's the
yeah,
way to grow up. Like honestly.
redneck through and through. I was raised on squirrel and stone quarry bass. That's
Oh
what we
yeah.
have for dinner.
Yeah, I did a lot of the same. So like fishing strip mine pits and all that stuff. No, my family specifically really wasn't outdoorsmen per se. I kind of lucked into it. Like my mom and moved, we were actually living in California when I was like a baby, and back to where my family is from in Western PA. So I lived in Grove City, just north of Pittsburgh, and we moved in with my grandparents. So my grandfather was retiring, so he was a golfer, but he couldn't do it as much, like walking and doing all that. So we got into fishing, and we both kind of learned it at the same time. And we were watching In Fisherman and all the shows and reading the magazines together and tinkering with tackle in the basement and huffing black mold fumes down there and all that good stuff. And then we fished for everything. Like he'd be like, all right, we read this article in Fisherman, like let's go fish for catfish at the pond, or let's go fish for trout and try this bait or try that. And I just kind of gravitated when we go to ponds to like, I wanted to move, and he was handicapped at this point, like so I would just like go walk around and want to cast and throw a worm or something moving a spinner bait. And that's kind of how I got into the bass stuff. And the tournament stuff, as I was young, like we'd watch on TV. I was like, that's what I want to do. Like
Yeah.
I said, that's what I want to do. I want to be a pro bass fisherman. And I think a lot of people thought it was pretty crazy, and I'm sure it wasn't the most sane thing, but it worked out at least to some extent, in the future.
Yeah, I kind of realized I know what you're talking about. It just like with this little company I have, it's a pipe dream till it's real, and then it's real all of a sudden. So
Yeah, you guys seem to be gaining quite a bit of steam. Like I see a lot more Blue Rock stuff.
yeah, dude, it's man, it's been crazy, and we've uh just met some awesome people along the way. And I believe with any business, if you treat people good and make a decent product, it'll grow. But we just stay after it. I mean, try. It's kids are at a tough age to hit as many shows as I'd like to, but
How old are your kids?
I've got a 6 and a 12, and they're active. They're both girls, and gymnastics season falls during show season, but we still do good. I mean, I've got some great college kids that help, and Aaron helps. So I've got a good network of guys.
What's that?
You tying jigs too?
Nope.
Late nights.
He's doing other things for me. He's helping me design some 3D drawings, and
ooh, sweet.
So we're working on getting most of our lead products are all like custom, we
like
spin cast everything. But I'm trying to transition our plastics into that, where you can't just get on a website and buy a mold, but it all just takes time and money. So
it does.
We're getting
you have
there.
big visions of stuff, and it takes a lot longer than you want to.
And I mean, you waste money along the way, and learn some things the hard way, and
that's the best way to learn, though.
Yeah, it is. It just takes time, and I feel like with a business like mine, you almost just got to stick around long enough to show people like you're not going anywhere, and then you start gaining some street credit, and maybe a guy like you would come to a show 3 or 4 times, established guy that knows what you like, but maybe that 5th year you're like, I gotta check this dude out. Like, he's got something that's decent. And it's just it snowballs over time. So
it does. I think you're right. It's about sticking around. Even in fishing, I think it's just being resilient and sticking around, and then you get a break or two. And then with your business, I'm sure it's happening like that too. When you just you get a little break here, you get a little break there, a setback, a little break. Like that's really life.
It's cool. I mean, and little things like it makes me feel really good to know that you bought a pack or 2 of triple threats at Fisherman's Central. Yeah, so
got some fish on them.
Yeah, just stores and stuff like that giving us a chance, man. It's all just I don't like taking credit for any of it.
He doesn't like
it's just been cool. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
To stay humble. That
great people, man. Great people around me. So.
You meet some cool people through fishing. Yeah. There's no question.
Yeah,
what we all love.
We interviewed a fella by the name of Whitney Stevens.
Yeah, I know.
He's one here in Ohio that got behind me and helped me design a jig, and he's very connected with some other high profile guys, and it's just things like that, man. It's networking and getting some breaks, and he's the episode that drops tomorrow night, so you'll have to listen to it. It's going to be a pretty good one.
It'll be a good listen on your ride home from Cuga.
Yeah, exactly. I have a very, very nice long ride and I'll probably get home at like 11 o'clock at night.
Speaking of a long road and catching some breaks, you've had a long career, kind of starting out as a co-angler, traveling around, stepping up to a pro, having some success, and then qualifying for the elites. When you said, "Hey, I'm going to be a professional fisherman. I'm going to fish the elites," did you have a backup plan? Like, did you plan to go to college for like nursing?
Well, I mean, I went to college. So I went to college in Erie. It's a Gannon. It's a private school. I went there to just play football, really. Okay, so it was a D2 school, but I had other choices, but I picked there because I wanted to go fish, because I wanted to be able to fish at Presque Isle, Erie, right?
Right.
And I just wanted a high level to challenge myself, right? So yeah, there wasn't necessarily a backup plan. I mean, I had a college degree, so I guess that means something. But the college fishing thing was just starting, so I did start a club there at Gannon, and
nice.
I did one tournament my last year, which at that point, like, I'd barely even fished in a boat, at this point in my life, like a few times, right? and I joined a local club and stuff in college. And then I was like, I got hurt. I got injured. I tore every ligament in my knee my junior year. I was going in as a starter, and at spring camp, we got new turf, and something gave, and it was my knee. And then I was like, man, I really need to put figure out I know what I wanted to do, and now it's time to do it, right? I need to figure out the fishing side, understand more about like what are the options. I don't have a boat yet, as far as like a bass boat. I got a tin boat, I think, when I was 21, so like my senior year. And my buddy, he's still one of my best friends. He gives it to me. He sells it to me for like $1,800, which I made the same money back when I sold it a few years later. So I mean, it gave me a great deal. But he gave me a Folgers coffee can with it when he gave it. I was like, "What is this for?" He's like, "Oh, it leaks." And I was like, "Oh, okay. You didn't tell me that before we just did the deal." But that's part of the fun of learning the boats and figuring out how to fix stuff and all that. But yeah, so like from there, I figured out, okay, the college fishing thing's taking off. I need to get involved. I created a club there, me and my friend Alex, and I fished one college tournament. It did terrible. I didn't know anything, but I was learning. I started doing a co-angler in the local club and learning and reading, which I'd always done, and watching videos and fishing more tournaments. And then I fished the opens as a co-angler the first, when I graduated, and traveled by myself, didn't know anybody, and just started to meet people and, get somebody to practice with and learn more and get to expedite the process of just learning. I didn't even know what a drop shot was, when I was a junior in college, when I first fished my first tournament. So, I mean, that was only 15 years ago. And just, because like I said, we grew up fishing for everything. I loved bass, but like that was just newer, that technique and stuff at the time. And, I was just learning the techniques for Erie and all this stuff, and just, expedited that whole process, as much as I could.
You did a heck of a seminar on drop shotting at the Great Lakes Fishing Expo.
I appreciate that.
You learned something over the years. I got to ask, Destin.
That was the first task, was to learn a drop shot. So now that's the one. That's the one I put a lot of focus on.
I got to ask, because I was a ball player. My first pick would probably be quarterback, but you kind of give me wide receiver vibes. What were you playing here?
Yeah, a lot of people thought quarterback because I was number 6 in high school, but I was actually like a tight end in high school.
Okay, tight end.
And then I was too short. Like I was a good tight end, but I was too short. So they moved me to like H. So like basically like a wing, motion guy and come out of the backfield kind of guy, but mostly like a lead blocker, catch the ball occasionally. So a little bit of wide receiver, right?
We'll have to have a football podcast next time.
What do you play? You guys play?
Oh, I played all sorts of sports in high school, but I probably about like you. I could have probably played some D3 ball or wrestled, but I had other things to do at that point in my life. So here I am making fishing baits now somehow. So.
Yeah, you're probably less banged up too. You don't have a bunch of
which is good. It's all working out. So we're awesome. Good. Yeah.
No, I didn't really play sports at all. I was either riding my bike around to a local fishing hole or getting in trouble doing something else. So,
well, when you're fishing, you weren't getting in trouble though. That's
right. Yeah,
it was a good thing. That kept me out of a lot of trouble too.
Yeah, I was in either or. I was either fishing and not getting in trouble, or doing something I shouldn't have.
That was totally me too. That was the same.
So you just jumped straight into the opens as a co-angler.
Yeah,
that's expensive. It's a lot of travel.
At that time, thankfully, it wasn't as bad. Yes.
Right. But compared to, at the time, it was probably the Bassmaster Weekend Series.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of guys seem to start out on the club level, then the weekend series or some form of that.
Yep.
Kind of establish themselves, build some confidence, and then step up. You just stepped straight into the opens. What was that experience like? Because obviously you're a student of the sport and you were trying to take in as much as you could. But in those formats as a co-angler, you kind of get whoever you get
Mhm.
when the boats are drawn. And do you have any amazing experiences or experiences you're like, man, I'm never doing what that guy did?
Yeah, probably a little bit of both. That first year, I drew some really cool guys like Kevin Short and Jim Dillard, who used to fish in the FLW Tour. For a couple guys. I'm trying to think who else I fished with that year. But I got to see the guys like Kevin Short, shallow cranking and like
Learned some
stuff that he's
square billing,
really good
didn't
at. That's exactly what he did, and
you? Yeah.
I got to see how he worked and like most of it was like I'm learning, like I'm trying to compete, but I'm also like learning a ton, from these guys, building relationships and at a high level. I mean, obviously, because the co-anglers are really good, at that level. And yeah, I didn't jump into like the weekend stuff, which I did the next year. So I added that, I did the opens again, and then I added the BFLs and weekend series tournaments, and just kind of picked and choose around, my area, just to learn. So like I fished Mosquito and Oneida, some New York lakes, and like Potomac and places like that, just to learn more that way too. And the opens was humbling at first, right? My first open was a 0, at the James River. I think it was when I was fishing with Kevin Short. I had 0. I think it was the second day or whatever. So I'm like, well, I need to learn this place. And then I think I cut a check at the James River every time after, as a co-angler. And it's just incentive to learn, incentive to like move forward and grow. And I there's so many amazing learning experiences. I mean, that day with Kevin Short, we almost both died. There was a thunderstorm, and I was like, oh, he's just gonna like fish through this thunderstorm too. I was like, we're not gonna take cover or anything. The lightning cracks. It cracked so close to us, we both hit the deck and our ears were ringing. Like it almost hit both of us.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, okay, that's how it is. So, cool. So that kind of shaped how intense I was as well. I was like, all right, that's the standard. That's cool. Like we can do that, but we almost died. Just so many different things like that. Like you see, but I mean, as far as like bad experiences, I didn't really have too many, on the co-angler side, and I just took it as like, they're there to do their job. I'm doing my own against other people. I have to catch, around these people, and I have to learn how to adapt. And I mean, I think, in the years to come, I was able to do that. Like in the next year in the BFL Northeast, I finished second in the points, and me and Jason Shipton were banging first and second all year. Like we were staying right at the top. And, then the next year in the opens, I won the points as a rider, and I finished third in the Southern, the first time I ever fished down south. And like things were starting to click as I was just getting more plugged in, learning, being immersed in it. And, it's a great way to learn. I mean, the way that I did it isn't like the perfect way. I mean, you could have started the weekend series, but I was also fishing the club, as a boater in my tin boat and learning that too. And just seeing how these guys operate with their boat and how, the professional guys are versus, the weekend type guys that you might fish the open or in the weekend series or the BFLs and stuff, and just how to conduct yourself and, what kind of separates, at that level.
Yeah. You brought up a thought for me with fishing when you were talking about 0 and one of your first opens as a co-angler. But like I've told some young kids this, like bass tournament fishing is like one of the literal, you got to pay your dues. Because I feel like I tell these kids, like, you just got to come out here and get your tail whipped a few times, and it's either going to light a fire in you and you're going to force yourself to figure it out. And it's going to be expensive for a year or two, but like you start seeing things and catching on to things, and then it finally starts taking traction. But you do have to pay your dues with real money. Sadly.
Yeah, and just like your business or anything you start out at a level of understanding and experience, and as you keep going on, you just get another step and then another step, and things come together here, or then you go back to this place, and then you get have to learn more there and keep going and go different. There's just so many ways to
brick by brick. That's all you can do.
100%.
Do you feel like going the route you did helped to speed up your growth? by just jumping in with guys that are significantly better?
Yeah, 100%. I do recommend that as far as the opens for sure. It's a little bit different now because the style of fishing has changed much since I was learning. Because like live scope wasn't around at this point. So, I'm getting to see guys doing all kinds of different techniques in different situations, whether we're in tidal rivers and all this stuff. And I'm adding my own flair because I'm testing my own concepts at the same time. So then I'm having success as a co-angler and figuring out my own things and my own bites and how I approach things and having success that way. So you kind of get a two-prong where you're getting to compete as well and learn at the same time, from people that are better and more experienced, than you. And especially at the opens level, I mean, it's not like a shot or anything, but the guys at the opens level were so much more professional overall because a lot of those guys, that was their career, so they fished the elites or they fished the FLW tour, or like there was some kind of touring level that a lot of those guys would fish that also fished the opens. So there's like a level of professionalism and, that they'd all attained and conducted themselves by. Whereas like a weekend thing, it's a secondary thing a lot of times where it's like you have a normal job and like you enjoy fishing to whatever extent, it might just be like a hobby or it might be like you want to go further, right? It's just a different level. And at the opens, I was around people that either were there or were fighting to be there. So like that model helps, you understand what you need to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
At what point were you like, all right, I'm buying a boat, I'm stepping up to the next level?
After, I'd won, so I kind of attained a level where, okay, I finished really high in the BFLs 2012. I won the points and finished third in the Southern. It was the first time I ever fished in the South in my life. Okay. In 2013. Awesome. And I was like, all right, we need to at least get a boat and start, dabbling, right? While still fishing as a co-angler and learning more. But I need to start messing around locally with my boat, learning a fiberglass boat and the differences between that and like a aluminum boat. Because that's the next step as far as for professional fishing, you got to use a fiberglass boat for the most part. I mean, some guys are using, aluminum boats now, but they're, further along than they were then.
That's a different level now.
Yeah.
I think that says a lot about you, Destin, as a where your mindset is, because you knew you had something there, but you still kept yourself in check, and you're like, let's just keep checking this out. That's one thing we talked about with Whitney. He said, make sure you're beating the guys around the house before you buy spend $150,000 on a truck and a boat, and keep yourself in check as you grow there. Cause you see a lot of guys that don't, and it just doesn't pan out for them. But that's just a compliment to you, man. You obviously are a humble dude and good head on your shoulders. But keep on going. I just want to give you your props there.
But I mean, you got to understand, you got to be honest with yourself and what level you're at. And I still have a lot to learn, right? I've never even, I haven't had my own fiberglass boat at this point. Yes, I've proven that I can catch fish, around the country, right? At a co-angler level. That's different than a pro. I'm building a lot of connections. I've had sponsors now, and the next step is to get a fiberglass boat. But I was still fishing, I think I was still fishing the BFLs. I fished 4 because they conflicted with the opens maybe that year or something. But I fished the Everstarts, the Toyotas. I was leading the points in that one to the last one and finished second, I think, as a co-angler that next year. And maybe fished a BFL and some local stuff in my boat. And then I got the opportunity. I was like, I knew at this point, I think as a co-angler, all right, I think I've learned what I need to learn as a co-angler. Now it's time to move forward and learn, on the fly, right, as a pro. So, 2015, the opportunity came up. I met, Grant McKnight. He's a entrepreneur from my area, Grove City, and he gave me a job, working at Duredge, but also sponsored me. He's like, I want to sponsor you to go fish the Northern Opens. I just won the points,
wow.
In 2013 as a co-angler. So I got to fish those 3 tournaments, and there was a lot of learning curve there. But I ended up finishing, I think, 6th or 7th in the points. I missed the elites by like a few, and it was a user error. Okay, so at Oneida, I had an issue with my battery, and I didn't really understand. Like my graphs kept flickering, went out, and I went dead. But I was in by the way in, like I could see the guy, but it's not until you throw the thing. And I was just trying to troll in for like 15 minutes.
Brutal.
And so I got a 2-pound penalty for that. That was the only one I didn't cut a check in. So I missed I still finished in like 40th or something, 41st or whatever it was. So just learning little things there, stuff breaking, figuring out how to like fix certain things on the boat and diagnose what was going on, and you're dealing with co-anglers. But I had pretty good co-anglers, that year, and just that whole dynamic of you're running the show, right? So, yeah, good.
I had a thought. I was going to ask you something, but you caught me off guard. You're going to have to edit this out, Aaron. I can't remember what the heck. It was right on the tip of my tongue, and then something else hit me.
I have a daughter, I have kids and a wife too. I forget everything too. So
no,
I'll think of something. I'll be like, yeah, I don't even remember what I was going to ask you.
I'll come back to it. I'm mad now. I was just going in 2 different directions, but I can't remember what the heck I was going to ask you. I don't know. Aaron, keep going with anything you got. I'm just taking it all in anyways. So.
And so just looking at your statistics online and your finishes, and it seems like you had at least one decent finish every year, like top 10.
Yeah, typically.
And then in 2019, you qualified for the elites for the 2020 season.
Right.
That jump to the elites, like, I mean, that's what you've been striving for essentially your whole life.
Yep.
When you got there, was there like a level of anxiety or a sense that you didn't belong, or were you like, hey, I'm here, I belong here?
Yeah, at that point, no, I don't think there was. And a lot of it was like, I knew most of the guys at this point because, I'd been fishing the opens for so long. I'd been so close even when I was a dang greenhorn, right? Against the guys I grew up watching on TV. And then I basically from 2016 till I did make it, like there was a lot of growing pains when I started going to fish in the southern stuff. And I was, blowing hubs on the interstate and popping tires and having all these issues, like, and then just not making good decisions, like on the water. And just, I had to learn how to adapt to those things. And it was good. You need those years where, you have to go through that struggle. Cause obviously, like I explained, a lot of those years I had a lot of success. So it wasn't like consistent struggle. Right. So those ups and downs, those period of time was huge. Like it was a character building thing. Right. I appreciate that. I didn't like it at the time. Right. I had some really bad tournaments and just did dumb stuff like, like a younger, novice type person. But, when I did, make it was awesome. Like I felt like everything was clicking and, making really good decisions. And, I was finally at that place where, I felt like I was ready as much as I could be at that point. But yeah, I didn't feel like there was too much anxiety at that point. I'm a man of faith. And at that time, I mean, I have the best relationship with God that I've ever had, in my life. I mean, I feel like right now I'm pretty dang close to that. But that was really, the change for that.
Nice.
Did you ever think of what you were going to ask, Jesse?
Yeah, I had 2 different things in mind, and it just kind of all got jumbled together because I was thinking back to my own experiences. I was wanting to ask you the whole time, which you've kind of hit on it, but like that first tournament morning, if you take yourself back to that first one going from a co to a boater, I remember the first time I fished a BFL, just a BFL as a boater, like my nerves were just like, man, like it's on me now. I'm not just tagging along. Like I was
I
just
felt the
wondering
same.
like how surreal that first open was when you switched gears there, and it probably all went away when you caught the first fish. But
So like you were saying, the BFL, that was the first like big tournament I fished. It was in 2014. I fished one BFL and actually had they call it the Jim Moynaw rule. Okay, so me and my co-angler both got DQ'd. He threw one of his fish in my live well, so I'm counting my fish. I'm like, why do I have 6? And he's like, why do I have one less?
oh
So
no,
that's a good start to the BFLs. And like I knew Robert Evans, through the BFLs. We were friends because like I'd fished him as a co-angler, and I saw him a lot because I was making a lot of top 10s, and he's a great guy. And he was just like, yeah, he's like, you got to. I was like, I mean, it's a rule. It's I was irritated, but it was I was nervous, yes, like you said, like I was nervous going into the tournament because you're in control, etc. But like that was just kind of like a funny thing now to look back on. But then in the open, like super big nerves. I'm fishing against like Ike and Ellie and all these people that I looked up to, and I've been a co-angler, so now you're switching to the front of the boat, and it is all on you. But yes, once you catch the first fish, and it kind of calms the nerves, but you've got a little more pressure, I think, the first tournament to like, and I made a check, in the first tournament at James River.
that's awesome.
It made some, I made a key decision the second day, and just that little voice in the back of your head, when things are clicking, you're listening to that, right? I ran like 10 miles. I had to be back in like 40 or 50 minutes. I ran 10 miles the opposite direction to make one cast, caught a 3.5 pounder, head back.
Dude, that's
Hey,
awesome.
check.
That's awesome. That's what it takes.
Yep.
That's what it takes.
I mean, when you're clicking, like those kind of things happen when you're just trusting.
There must be a correlation between those weird nerves and first BFLs, man. I had a similar story. First one I ever jumped in as a boater was down at Dale Hollow, and kind of the same thing happened, but my lower unit blew on a 5-minute run back to weigh-ins, and I had a check in the live well, and heck, I didn't even know the rules enough to know if it was just not enough time. But looking back, I could have flagged the boat down and probably just hopped in, but like
that was my issue in the open too.
Blew it all in the last 5 minutes, and I'm sitting there, is it Star Point or wherever it goes out of there?
I'm not familiar. I've never been to Dale.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the dude in there checking boats, just floating out there in the middle, and I'm just like, it was just like I was in a weird bad dream, and it just
you're like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, dude, but it's all good. Got that one out of the way, and the few I've fished since then, I've done decent.
I mean, it's kind of fitting for like your first experience that some kind of like chaos or something funny is going to happen,
Never fails, man.
Yeah.
Never fails.
Jesse, was it Whitney that said this, that you're fishing against the fish, not the other anglers?
Very much.
Yeah, super true too.
Like when you're fishing against Ike and Ellie and all these other big names in the opens, like how much of that goes through your head though? Like, is there this sense that like, man, like these guys are good, I got to beat them? Or is it like, no, I just got to catch my fish?
Mm-hmm. So I think you hit it on the head. Like you should have that attitude. And that's what I try to have my whole career. And a lot of it, like that luster from, all those guys, like them being like something different or untouchable or better. Like I'd already been around them. I already had made friends. I'd seen that they're all human. I see that they're not all perfect fishermen. And I see like, okay, like they're just anybody, they've had success, but they're still fishing against the fish, just like you said. And that was my attitude always. Like, I think my mom, when I even started fishing as a co-angler in the open, she's like, you're going to waste all your money. You're like, I just got out of college. I didn't have any money hardly. I was delivering pizzas my senior year. after my injury and stuff, and like just racking up as much hours and working till 3 a.m, delivering pizzas, in Erie, and saving some money to do it. And she's like, yeah, it's crazy. But then she's like, yeah, now I see it. Like after a while, because then, my mom or my girlfriend would come to tournaments, and the guys that I'd fish with would be like, he's really good. Like he needs to fish as a pro. Like, he needs to fish as a boater. Like, why is he still doing this? And they were like, oh, okay. But I mean, as far as she asked me once, she's like, same question. She's like, aren't you like, nervous to fish against like Kevin Van Dam or, I could, whoever it is. And I was like, no, you're fishing against the fish. If I see it that way, it's not any bigger than it already is. Like it is. It's just, I have to catch them. I know what weight I have to catch. That's the only goal. Like, pretty much going into the tournament, this is how much weight I got to catch.
Yeah.
That's it. If I want to make a check, I need to have at least this in my live log. I would be disappointed. But I mean, if I want to win or have a chance, I need to, have this standard, and I need to be on that caliber of fish and execute it.
Yeah. Yep.
No, I'm definitely guilty of chasing anglers and points instead of just going out and fishing.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Halfway through the day, I'm thinking, well, these boats probably have this much weight already because these guys are good. And in reality, like, we have no clue what they have.
No.
I've
seen. So I fished. Here's a great story. I fished with 3 of the best, in my age group guys that are the biggest names in fishing right now when I was a co-angler. In each tournament that I fished with them, they did atrocious. Like atrocious. And these are guys that have won Angler of the Years, that have won classics, that have done all, and I was like, these guys are just guys. Yeah. Like it's fishing. Everyone has bad days. Everyone has challenges with the fish and have to learn how to adapt to them. But like, I used to think the same thing. I was like, oh, these guys are just better, and they're always gonna. I was like, I saw how they fished some of them, and I was like, they're not even technically that good. Like as far as like, because like I fish with guys that are like just technically insanely good. Like they can put a jig in 2 inches, and they never even tank it ever. You know what I mean? Or that kind of stuff. And I was like, I saw these guys fish, and a lot of them, like, it didn't impress me fishing wise. It impressed me like the decisions they made and their attitude they had, 100%. And that's what I try to mirror, like in my career, because the attitude. You're not always going to catch them. You're not always going to figure it out, but you have to have a good attitude, and that's really the most important thing. And you're fishing against the fish, right? You're not fishing against the other guys. But that really made me see, like, it's, they're not doing anything super crazy. They're not, there's guys,
it's such a mental game.
Mm-hmm.
It's staying just even keel when you're not catching them, when you are catching them. I think that's like, and the half glass full attitude. There's a lot of negative. I hate to say it. I try to stay super positive, but as well as I do, like, there's a lot of guys that just are so negative. They're not going to catch them. They've got themselves convinced they're not. Maybe it's a lake they hate, or the weather isn't what they want, or you got to just block all that out. Just go fish.
Yeah. I think you learn that as a co-angler too, because you guys were saying, like, you're at the mercy of your boater, and you're just going to whatever situation. That's the thing I learned. Like, I don't care, if I had a good day or a bad day, I'm going to do the best that I can, depending on what circumstances I'm given. I'm going to try to catch every fish that I can, and sometimes it worked out really well, and more often than not as a co-angler. But still, you had opportunities where it was impossible for you to catch a fish. But you can't like think, I got backboated, blah 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 blah. That's not going to help you. If you have the attitude, you're never going to grow. Everyone has to deal with these things, so just deal with it and move on. Like, you just learned something today, even if you didn't win, you learned something.
Yeah, I feel like as a co-angler, a good attitude to have is like knowing that your opportunities aren't going to be many, but you got to take advantage of those little windows when you finally get that cast you want, or you're in an area where you and you just got to like know that all day and just be prepared for when it happens. But Yeah, there's always something to learn.
There is on both sides.
My first tournament as a co-angler, it was a tournament right during the spawn, and I had a great boater, but he was on a fish that was on a bed, and I was backboated, and so I just kind of cast it around, kind of aimlessly. But while I was doing that, I was just watching and learning kind of what he was doing to try to get that fish to bite, and eventually he got it to bite. And but I've never fished for bedfish prior to that, and so
you just learned something cool about how to attack that fish and get that fish to bite that you didn't know before.
So on the Elite Series, I mean, we get to see what's on TV, what's in the magazines, what's online. How much is there that goes on that like just the general public doesn't know about, either good or bad? And like, what was something that was kind of eye-opening to you that you were just like, wow, I had no clue about this?
I mean, a lot of the stuff that you're seeing now, like all the drama and stuff, I kind of already knew about that stuff as I was coming up in the opens, right? So I had enough friends on the high, at the high levels to, catch wind of things that was happening even at the opens and, the elites and the FLW at the time and, later MLF, but nothing was really unexpected in that regard. Just because I knew it was going, I'd say a part of me didn't want to, part of me wanted to believe that like it could be different, right?
I can keep my head down and just kind of avoid drama.
Yeah, it could be different, but I mean, there's some things that just happen that a lot of people don't know, and it's potentially unjust as you're seeing, and a lot of people don't like it. That things that people are doing, and it's not good for the sport. It's not good for being ethical. It's not good for being honorable, obviously. And that stuff has gone on for a long time, and I've seen things, I've heard things that are corroborated by a lot of witnesses, and I mean it's sad to hear this stuff, but I mean it's the reality of the sport, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. Did you travel with anybody else that was on tour, or yeah?
Yeah, so my first year, my travel partner in the opens was team partners with Hank Cherry. So,
oh, cool.
Hank was like, "Hey, you can travel with me and Kelly J." So I traveled with them some, and sometimes we'd be with Brock and Tyler Vitt, and and then a couple of tournaments I stayed, by myself because I had friends or whatever that lived in the area. So I was like, I'm gonna save some money, I'm gonna stay at their house.
Absolutely. I'm sure you save it wherever you can when you're running those.
But yeah, that's who I traveled with the first year, and I mean, obviously that was the year Hank won the Classic at the beginning of the year, so that was pretty cool. And I mean, he's a great fisherman, and he definitely taught me some stuff, and it was definitely an interesting year with the COVID and backing up. Like it was just an interesting season to start, as a rookie. But it was a fun learning curve, and I had some good tournaments that year, and had a couple where I was just like, God dang it, I was so close. I just lose a fish or something, but it was fun. Like I enjoyed it was kind of like that learning again, like roller coaster, right? Of the highs and lows and a new challenge.
Yeah. It was awesome to see Hank win after that grand. I don't even know when it was when he lost that heartbreaking fish. The year that Cliff Pace won. God, that was brutal. But
he lost two big ones that tournament too. Then he lost that huge one the last day. He just down on
oh yeah, this collapsed, and it's
that's
so
almost
hard
become
to
like
watch.
an iconic.
They always play it back.
Yeah,
well, at least he made up for it 1-2. So
right, yeah, back to back. Because he kind of got robbed the COVID year too. It was just weird and all that.
Very weird.
It was cool. But I've actually chatted with him just a tiny bit, and he seems like a super chill dude.
Yeah, he's very chill.
Yeah.
I feel like when the Bass Pro Tour and kind of some of the elites went over there, it caused a little bit of kind of turmoil in the top level of the industry,
Mm-hmm.
and that seemed to have leveled out for a while. And I mean, just with the current events and some of the stuff that's going on, it seems like some of that's kind of stirring back up. Um, and that could just be my perspective of it, but where do you think that level's going with the MPFL saying, "Hey, we're not doing forward facing," and just kind of everything going on? Like, do you think we're just in a rough patch and everything's just going to continue as normal, or do you think there's going to be some changes coming up in the near future?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, it's definitely a rough patch right now, and I don't think what you're feeling or seeing is unjustified, right? I think there is an element of that going on as far as like kind of that still that friction there, and it's kind of surfacing even more. There's going to be changes for sure. I think a lot of it is forward facing regarding information rules, as we've seen a lot of that get really heavily enforced with Bassmaster, and even I mean MLF has had some DQs and stuff in the last year or two. I think there's definitely going to be some changes. I think some of these rules are very, very difficult to enforce consistently.
So much gray area.
The more gray you have, the more people are going to push boundaries.
Right.
And you could say, well, it's not cheating. There's a lot of stuff that you'd be like, well, that's not ethical, or that doesn't sound like it's very good, but it's not technically cheating, right? It's hard. It's very hard in fishing. It's been a consistency issue for many, many years. I don't know how you completely solve that. I don't know how you solve the issue of, people have a legitimate gripe about forward-facing sonar and whatever side of the fence you stand on that. I mean, there's legitimate points on both sides. Is it like, I guess what you were saying earlier, Jesse, about like earning and paying your dues? There's an element of that I understand some of the older guys having a lot of issue with basically spending their whole life, working at something and getting good at it and spending countless hours learning something and getting smoked by very young guys that don't necessarily know and have those skills. They're very, very good at the skill that they do have, which that is the sport right now. Right. You can't fault them either, the young guys, because that is the sport and they've gotten extremely good at playing that game.
Oh yeah.
But it is this weird kind of feeling when it's just different when, Kevin Van Dam and those kind of guys aren't winning the classic or doing that stuff. Like, it's just it's like a transition at a different time in the sport where it just feels weird. And I understand what you're saying. And I don't know what the answer to that, but there will be changes, I guarantee you, to address those two things. I mean, obviously MPFL's kind of went out on a limb, and I think it's a bold move to differentiate themselves. And I mean, overall, it seems like it's, working out pretty well.
Yeah.
You've got some big name guys on board with that.
Right. It's kind of just establishing their own brand. And I told Whitney that I think LiveScope's going to end up growing the sport, because I mean, I don't want to call the MPFL like the senior tour, but like it's going to create these different places for more guys to compete, and it's so much. I'm at kind of an age where I see both sides. We probably all are. So, and I, in the big scheme of things, suck at it, but I'm still probably better than a lot of, 50, 60-year-old fellas in the old bass club, and they don't like that. So, And I don't do it all the time. It doesn't even play in a lot of these little mud puddles here in Ohio. The fish are just so structure oriented, but it's just it's crazy, man. I don't even know where to even go with it.
I know. It's the general feeling is just like, well, I mean, yeah, how do you like put it all into words and like how do you move forward? How do you change things that it's better for everybody, right? And you're saying like you got different tours offering you different options. Like you don't have it here, you could use it there. You can have it for one period here. You can do. They're going to ultimately have to make a decision, and
well,
the reality.
It involves money too. Like that's the bad thing. Like it's just.
But the reality is, like, I don't think the sport's growing in the tournament side. To be honest, I think we had the COVID boom, and it's kind of like tapering a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of it is just like this divisiveness, this drama, this whatever's going on, this fractured, all these different organizations doing their thing. I think it's strongest when there's one or two and they're kind of like when Bass and FLW are kind of working together a little bit. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like the guys could fish both tours, they could make a better living. The same names, were household names, the Iconellis, the Hackneys, the whoever. And I think as our sport, like that's probably the best scenario. I mean, obviously it's kind of like shrinks it down a little bit. But as a spectator sport, as a fan sport, as a consistency, I think it would help.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree and can respect that. I again, like I said, I don't even know, like I don't think anybody knows right now. I feel like in 20 years the Bassmaster Classic's going to be announced like pre-scope Bassmaster Classic champion, like this
Asterisk.
weird yeah, just I just try to look down the road and think of where things are heading, and it's such a fun sport, a recreation. Anybody can get out there and compete. Like I hate seeing all the drama and all the bad thing with the information stuff, man, is like someone can drag you into the mud just being vindictive, and and like it's just, and a polygraph is like you could fail a polygraph if you're just an anxiety riddled person in general.
Yes.
So
or you could get a false positive because you have no, you're basically like a psychopath or something. Like you,
right?
It doesn't register, right? Like I lied. Like most people are like, oh my gosh, that's not true.
Yeah, that's what's just crazy about it all. I feel like the coolest, format that was around that probably would prevent a lot of that is when like the MLF like first started and they just like take them to a lake in the morning and just go fishing.
That was cool.
That was awesome. And but then you're not getting 30-pound stringers of bass, and the big guys aren't getting dialed in like they can on a tour when they have practice days and stuff. But me as a viewer, I loved that. I loved those shows because that's what we do. The working man shows up. Yeah, and we show up on a lake on a Saturday morning after working all week, and that's what we have to do is go out there, fly by the seat of your pants. Like, I like that, but they'll figure it all out. I'm a fan either way. So
I think that's what I enjoyed most about it is because, like, you put these guys up on this pedestal, and you're like, man, they're so amazing. But then when they show up at a lake that they've never been to, like you get to see how truly amazing they are when they can break down that body of water quickly and catch fish regardless, or in some
sometimes
cases
it doesn't
not
work.
catch anything.
Yeah. Right. No, it's great because you're right. Like that's what we all want to see is like not just like going and catching 30-pound stringers, consistently everywhere you go, like seeing the process of like you just got thrown onto this lake and like how you break it down and how everyone does it differently and like different ways you can approach it this time of year. And you're seeing like all these decisions going on, throughout, someone's head during that process, which is super cool for sure.
So what's going on in your head kind of coming up? Like, what are you planning to fish? Like what's your next goal?
What's
'Cause,
down the road?
yeah, you fish the elites. I mean, are you making it a goal to go back? Or are you looking for something else? Or are you just kind of comfortable where you're at?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I think right now, I'm fishing. Docs is running a few tournaments. I'm fishing this perch tournament. Me and the owner David are going to go fish a casting jigging tournament on Port Clinton at the end of the month for like the Loot, trail or whatever. So I'm expanding my horizons. I fished for everything growing up, and like I've always wanted to fish a walleye tournament. I mean, they run this huge perch tournament here at Cayuga. It fills up 100 boats full field, and there's a waiting list. Like, it's going to be a cool tournament. Like, I'm excited for tomorrow. And, we have the Rumble in the River in St. Lawrence. I fished anything at Erie around my house. Like, we have the King of Bass and different, local regional stuff. I fished St. Clair, the Payback, in September with my buddy Ben Nielsen from Michigan. We'll probably do that again. The Payback Bass in Michigan. And my buddy just moved to Vegas, so he's trying to convince me to come fish the U.S. Open in October, which I probably will do because all I have to do is fly out, and he's got a Phoenix and a truck, and he'll fish as an AM, so we can,
What's that lake called? Is that
it's at Mojave this year?
Mojave? That's one they'll have at Lake Havasu, and
it's right above Havasu is Mojave.
Okay.
Or below Mojave, but
that'd be different. But you're
it's a
from out there. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
No, it'd be cool. Like I'd like to do that. I probably will in October, but otherwise guiding and my wife and I are working. We're starting a little startup thing here soon. So I've been spending a lot of time this winter, kind of getting everything ready for that. So
awesome.
As far as going on the elites again, touring right now, it's not my aim. Maybe when my daughter's growing up, like, and we'll evaluate if I want to go tour and fish, bigger, like a tour. I mean, I'll still fish bigger stuff. But as of now, I have no really desire to do that currently.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with putting your family first, man. I'm a big believer in that. I just told a buddy today, he asked me if I was fishing a Vance Outdoors tournament on Buckeye Lake, and I said, buddy, my weekends are hit and miss for the next 10 years. I'm just going to have to fish when I can.
When you
don't want to miss certain things with the kids. No. And I get it.
Yeah, and I mean, the lifestyle is very difficult on a young kid and family, and I mean, I got to see that too, and I know it caused friction in my family. I mean,
I'm sure it does many.
Being a large majority here, and we weren't in the financial position where a lot of people are, and their whole families travel with them. My wife still works. I was still working a full-time job. We did the best we could, and at this point in our lives, like, we both are very content what we're doing now. And I know I didn't do the best job of being the husband and father that I needed to be at that time, just because I wasn't there. So
right.
I've been working on fixing that.
That's cool. You can say that, man.
Yeah, we've mentioned it a few times in other episodes that bass fishing is a selfish sport.
It is,
and you sacrifice a lot to be able to go do it. And I mean, just being able to recognize that and kind of reprioritize and reshift your focus. Thankfully, you were able to do it early enough in your career, and I don't have the ambition to fish the elites, and me, it's just kind of whatever weekends we can string up, like Jesse said.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun sport. Like, it's what we make of it, and like what you guys are saying, like, you just want to go have fun and fish, a weekend tournament. That's fun. Like, that's the root of the sport that keeps the sport going is just the competition, the camaraderie, the enjoyment of chasing and figuring out bass. And that's
Yeah.
You can do that at any level that you want. I mean, obviously, like I enjoy like challenging myself a little bit. That's why I want to do, the US Open or whatever. And I fish, some higher level regional stuff against the best guys at St. Lawrence and the best guys at St. Clair and like that stuff. I enjoy that, but it's, a few days and it's whatever I want to do,
That's another cool thing. Like one cool thing is where we're at more of at a grassroots level. It's gotten to the point where, you can, I know that deal on St. Clair's big money. And like we've got the Ohio River Challenge Trail down here. The championship's 25 grand.
That's
So there's regional things around where like the working Joe that doesn't want to, just mentally like knows he doesn't want to be a professional angler, but you can still go put that big money on the line and up the ante a little bit. Like it's cool that we're at a place where that stuff is around if you want to go find it.
Oh yeah, you guys in Ohio have a lot of good trails and a
Yeah.
lot of very good anglers to compete against. So
Yeah.
I mean, you get to fish at high whatever level you want there, and you get a good competition.
Yeah. Yeah. Mosquito Madness is another big one up there. They have.
It's hard to get in.
I've
hard to
never
get in.
fished it. I've
Neither
never
have I.
fished it. Got a ton of buddies that do, but
Same.
yeah, they're around if you want to find them. So
I think I am going to fish. I think my buddy Tyler and I, that we fished the team championship stuff together. I think we're probably going to fish. I think there's an ABA team thing at Mosquito this summer, so I think we're going to fish that together too. But yeah, like get a little variety of grass, largemouth lakes, smallmouth lakes. It's good to mix it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything it'll bite. I'm not prejudiced.
Oh yeah.
Usually we'll just leave our listeners with something. Just from kind of your path and your walk, what would you tell a young tournament guy or even a seasoned guy that has higher goals or ambitions and in their career of fishing?
I would say keep the right priorities in the right order, right? So for my own perspective, that's God, my family, and fishing as third, right? It's the Mark Rose thing, right? The faith, family, fishing. Keeping your priorities in the right place, all right? So fishing can't be your God. Fishing can't be the number one thing in your life if you want to have a balanced and happy life. But you can also glorify God and competing and living for the right things and helping people throughout the way and doing it the right way. And it doesn't always look perfect like what you see on TV where you're always catching 30-pound bags and have all the sponsors and stuff, right? But there's a lot of ways that you can enjoy the sport, be competitive, and have something to strive for, goals wise. But just keeping things in perspective, and that might be fishing local tournaments, and that might be all that you do, and you're content with it, or you might have the talent and the drive to make it further. But just keeping things in that right perspective, and I think things will go very well, regardless of what level you want to ultimately attain.
I like
Well,
it.
yeah, Destin, we appreciate you joining us tonight, and hopefully we can get you back on here to talk about some perch fishing or something too.
Yeah, perching.
Because we're not just bass fishing on the Netman podcast.
We're good.
We try to really just kind of grow and educate across the entire industry. So we want to thank everyone that tuned into this episode. Please make sure you follow us so you can hear more episodes just like this one.